Pleasant good morning. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. And we're getting ready for the debate. The debate tonight with the Prime Minister Andrew Holness and also with the leader of the opposition, Mark Golding, tonight. Yep, 1 second. Get my sound going. Get everything ready in place. Yeah. So I want to thank you for those joining me on TikTok, those joining me on Facebook, those joining me on YouTube. And I'm going to definitely have two guests tonight, Mr. Malik Mohammed and also Mr. Danmar Clark, live straight from Jamaica as well. And good morning, Belinda, late night shift. My UK peeps joining, ready for the session tonight. It's now 2:55 in the morning in the UK. And of course, you're going to have as well. It is 5 minutes to 9 in Jamaica as well. And of course, what I'm going to do is to link into the program tonight. And of course, we're going to have tonight. We're going to have very key individuals. What we're going to have. Okay. Well, I can see it's getting started, getting going. I'll just turn that down. Yeah, we're gonna have the Prime Minister, Mr. Andrew Holness, tonight. There we are. Mr. Andrew Holness is gonna be one of the debaters tonight. He's the Prime Minister of Jamaica, and we're gonna have Mr. Mark Golding, the leader of the opposition. It's going to be a very vibrant night, very interesting night tonight as well. And I'm looking forward to some very good interaction. But I'm just going to invite my co-host in a few moments. But I tell you what, let me just get the ball rolling, cut out all the formalities, and get going on the late night shift. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Jamaica Leaders Debate. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to bring in my guest tonight, and I'm first going to have Mr. Malik Mohammed. Mr. Malik Mohammed, how are you doing, sir?
Very well, Silborn. Honor to be here with you again, man.
Yeah, you're live on the graveyard ship in the UK, yes?
Absolutely. What an honor. A great debate. Nope.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Malik Ahmed is the creator of the Empowerment Mastery System, a public speaker, mentor, and author of Gems Empowerment, available from Amazon. And he says, you're ready for the clash. Definitely. And I'm from Jamaica. We got a late night, we got an early morning shift guy from Jamaica. Mr. Danmar Clark, how are you, sir?
Greetings, everyone. Greetings.
I'm doing. Put your thing on. Can you
hear me now?
Go ahead. Yes, we can hear you.
I'm just saying greetings, everyone. I'm very excited to be here tonight, and I'm very excited more so for the debates. You understand me? The atmosphere in Jamaica is one of great anticipation. As I was saying to the host not too long ago, is that the ruling party has been in power for some time, and the opposition is really, they're drenching at it. They really want to get into power, and so we expect them to pull out all the stops. And I think tonight we'll kind of gauge the temperature of what will be like on the ground. So yeah,
fantastic. And ladies and gentlemen, Danmar Clark was one of the youths that I had on my show the other day with Brittany Edwards. Hearing what the youths have to say. He's a holder of Bachelor of Law degrees from UTech Jamaica. And him come straight from Ochi Malik. So I'm just let you know, Malik is a Ochi man, you know what I'm saying? And he went to the best school in Jamaica, York Castle as well, you know what I'm trying to say, all right?
Definitely.
All right. Danmar's good to see you. I'll leave it there. I'll leave it here.
Well, I want to read. I want to read this last of his bio, which is that Denmark is very passionate about politics and law, and consider himself to be an advocate.
Give
He
thanks.
most notably known in Jamaica for his fight for equal access to the legal profession for students and the future, and he aspires to be. He's gonna smile now. The revolutionary politician. So whenever I speak to him during my show, I call him the revolutionary leader. Revolutionary leader. You know, thank you for those who are joining me on TikTok. Welcome. And if you want to watch a show fully on to see, you can go on the YouTube channel, which is Silburn TV on YouTube. And thanks for those joining me on Instagram, those joining me on Facebook, and my sidekicks, them Super Nick, she's back again, and Belinda, she's back again, and as well we have some more viewers there on YouTube. Well, as you can see, it is starting. It is getting started. So I guess we just have to. What we do, we just go with the flow with it, and then we have a break. We'll give in our views and our comments as well. So let me just get the ball rolling here, and please let me know at times if you're not hearing or anything. Okay.
Manufacturing, Water, JN Group, Lasco Chin Foundation, Pan Jamaica Group, Miss Birdie,
You can hear okay, yes?
and VM Group. Tonight, we focus on the leaders. Our moderator is Archibald Gordon.
Okay, is it started?
Good evening. Welcome to the final of 3 general election debates organized by the Jamaica Debates Commission, staged before a live studio audience. The debates are intended to assist in identifying, clarifying, and understanding the issues being presented in this general election campaign. This evening's debate focuses on the leaders. Members of the panel of questioners are Dion Jackson Miller, Radio Jamaica 94 FM, and Giovanni Dennis, CVM TV. Taking and presenting questions from the public is our social media editor, Amoy Harriet, from CVM TV. I am your moderator, Archibald Gordon. As is customary, the audience is not to applaud the debaters except for now, after we announce each debater. Tonight, representing the People's National Party is party leader Mr. Mark Golding. Representing the Jamaica Labour Party is party leader Dr. Andrew Holness. The guidelines for tonight's debates have been previously agreed and are posted on the Debate Commission's website at www.jamaicadebatescommission.org. The guidelines include questions being no longer than 30 seconds, and each debater is allowed 90 seconds to respond to each question, and rebuttals are limited to 45 seconds. The questions posed in tonight's debate will come from 2 sources. The first source is you, the public. Send us your questions via direct message on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to Jamaica Debates. These will be checked, selected, and asked by our social media editor. The second source of questions is from our panel of journalists. Questions are not influenced by the Jamaica Debates Commission in any way. Our sign language interpreters tonight are Dorothy Williams and Terry-Ann Bernard from the Caribbean Christian Center for the Deaf. Based on a previous coin toss, our first question tonight comes from Dion Jackson Miller of the RJR Group, and it will be directed to Dr. Andrew Holness.
Dr. Holness, government members have recommended taking the Auditor General off the Integrity Commission. There have been changes made by your administration to the Office of Political Ombudsman that have virtually destroyed its effectiveness as a check on the behavior of politicians. And there have been constant attacks by members of your administration on the Integrity Commission and on media and civil society groups that criticize your administration. Shouldn't Jamaicans be concerned about what appears to be a pattern by your administration of undermining oversight bodies in the public sector, civil society, and media?
There is absolutely no attempt by my administration and indeed myself to undermine any oversight body. Indeed, we have acted to strengthen and make them far more efficient in placing the oversight of the political ombudsman under the office of the Electoral Commission. That's a move to strengthen and give it far more institutional framework. I myself have been very complimentary and acted in a very dignified way as it relates to the Integrity Commission.
Mr. Golding will have the opportunity to respond.
There has been a definite pattern of hostility from the Jamaica Labour Party government towards the institutions mentioned in the question, in particular, the Integrity Commission, largely because it is well known that there are at least 10 members of parliament who are under investigation for illicit enrichment, a serious corruption offense, of which the only one to be known is the one for whom a report has been completed and sent to the parliament, which is you, Andrew. As a result of that, they have done their very best to try to neuter that critical institution, including the Prime Minister bringing that institution to court to undermine its effectiveness and indeed eliminate it entirely.
Our next question comes from Giovanni Dennis, and it goes to Mr. Mark Golding.
Mr. Golding, Keith Duncan says the PNP's proposal to increase the income tax threshold to 3.5 million is impractical and impossible to fund without new taxes. Can you explain how these planned tax breaks will work without hurting the economy?
The context in which we have decided to increase the threshold to 3.5 million is the hollowing out of the middle class in this country. Working families finding it extremely difficult to make ends meet. And we believe with the debt to GDP ratio having now, after 13 and a half years of belt tightening and austerity, having now reached the cusp of the target of 60% of GDP introduced into the fiscal rules in law under Portia Simpson Miller, this is a time, this year it's expected actually, with the readjustment of the definition and calculation of GDP, this is the year that we expect to achieve that target. That will release 2.5% to 3% of GDP of additional resources, which were not previously budgeted for in the fiscal policy paper. That is more than sufficient to pay for our entire program, including the $3.5 million increase to 3.5 million of the tax threshold, which will make our civil servants and our middle managers, and indeed most of Jamaicans who are presently suffering under the high burden of the cost of living, have money that they can spend, they can fix up their homes, extend their homes with a room, buy a car if they don't have one, pay down debt where they may be in arrears. It is necessary to preserve the country from brain drain and to keep the society intact.
Dr. Holness now has the opportunity to respond.
The hollowing out of the middle class is an act of the PNP. They totally decimated the middle class. It is the Jamaica Labour Party that introduced the increase in the non-tax threshold that recreated a middle class in Jamaica. In fact, when you look at the salary profile of PAYE contributors, you would see that their salaries have all risen. It is the Jamaica Labour Party through the compensation review that has increased salaries by over 200 billion Jamaican dollars for public sector workers. The current proposal of the PNP is unworkable.
It's now time for a question from social media. We're going to Amoy Harriet.
Thanks, Archie. Our first social media question tonight comes from Instagram. Shania in Kingston, she says, low voter turnout suppresses the effectiveness of a democratic society. Many Jamaicans refuse to vote because they believe both parties are corrupt. What would you say to the significant population of non-voters? And if elected, how will you hold politicians accountable for offenses against the people instead of protecting them?
So in this instance, the question, you have 90 seconds to answer, and we begin with Dr. Holness.
Corruption is a serious problem in our country. and corruption requires strong leadership. From my position as Prime Minister, I have taken action against any member of my political party that has been involved or accused of anything that suggests corruption. In my own case, I have been investigated for a year with an expert forensic auditor. The findings of that report have suggested no corruption. There have been no charges. Every aspect of my report, every aspect of my personal life and my personal financial details are in the public domain. I am the politician about which Jamaica knows the most. And therefore, I am the politician who can stand with the greatest moral authority to treat with any matter that is considered corrupt, as I have done in the past. And I want to give this assurance to the Jamaican people that you know me, you know about me, you can trust me, and you know that I stand against corruption.
Mr. Golding has the opportunity to respond to that social media question as well.
Andrew, what they know about you is that you have 28 bank accounts, that you received several $1 million in cash deposits from anonymous donors in your bank account, that your companies had transactions of over $400 million, several thousand transactions between them, and that Positive Jamaica Foundation, a nonprofit which you are intimately connected with, provided resources which you use for personal investments through your personal company. We have signed the Leadership Code of Conduct developed by Integrity Commission. All of our spokespersons and myself have signed. None of your people have signed it. I am committed to ensuring that all members of the executive, when we form government, will have their Integrity Commission declarations published, not just the leader of the opposition and what should happen, but hasn't happened in your case because you're not certified, the Prime Minister. So the whole question that has been asked is an excellent question. And we really need to step up our vigilance against corrupt behavior, nepotism, and cronyism. The volume of scandals under this Jamaica Labour Party government is unprecedented. Over the number of ministers who have had to be removed from frontline duty, many of them parked in the naughty corner in OPM rather than being sacked. It is a disgrace to the country, and your personal situation where you're operating under a deep cloud because your Integrity Commission declarations are not certified, also is something which Jamaica cannot go forward with.
We'll now take a short break, and we invite you to stay tuned.
Guys, how are you doing? Can you
We're
hear
doing
me?
well. For me, I'm doing.
I must say,
I'm hearing you very well.
yeah, I must say it's a bit lukewarm. It's a bit like a dip squab. I don't know what you guys think about it so far, Malik. And what do you think so far?
Well, bearing in mind the three opening questions: one, the
Yeah.
Integrity Commission; two, income tax; and three, the issues of corruption. I thought that the Right Honourable Prime Minister's body language seemed less than confident. He was holding his head down at times. When the camera zeroed in on him, you could see the trepidation in his face. Golding gave clear examples, especially on the corruption matter. The fact that none of the JLP members had signed the Integrity Commission declarations, the 28 bank accounts that the Honourable Prime Minister had, the personal monies being used into investments, etc. Golding dissected the questions, answered directly, and it was off to a very good start in my view. He seemed confident. He's warming up, very much like in Stone Love in the dance. He's juggling just now, but you can see gradual crescendo.
Yes. And Denmark, what do you think so far?
I must agree with my colleague Malik. Golding has been very direct. He has really addressed the burning issues Um, well, he has outlined it very clearly and has made his position very, very obvious. It's very what his position
Yes.
is. You understand me?
Yes.
And he's correct in terms of
Yes.
what the government has done in terms of different parliamentarians or politicians involved in corruption. They really have been parked or benched at the OPM's office, and many persons have been questioning what the real sanctions are or will be. Now, without getting too deep into it, without calling any names, there have been persons who have been shifted here, who have been involved in some serious scandals. You understand me? And those are the things that the average Jamaican really have to question. Now, while we look at performance and we'll grade you on the performance, persons will question, yeah, you're performing, but are you performing while at the same time, as we say in
Yes.
Jamaica, dig out our eyes? So that's a very good
Yes.
question. Another thing I want to briefly touch on is the attempt to weaken certain key institutions, such as the Office of the Ombudsman and Integrity Commission. No, it is true.
Yes.
What has happened is that the Ombudsman's office has really been restructured. Now, the role of the Ombudsman is really to play as a type of political referee in Jamaica
Yes.
whenever politicians seek to violate certain principles or rules. Now, when you kind of restructure the office in that way, you have to be honest with yourself. If you know the law, you respect the principles of the rule of law or principles of
Yeah.
natural justice,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're really kind of you're hindering the entire process.
Yeah, I want to say before it starts back, in the bit about integrity bit, I believe, yeah, I think the Prime Minister really focused a lot on himself right there, and I think he was trying to maybe deal with that bit quickly, but really and truly,
Mhm.
the issue was how do you deal with it, and
Indeed.
it's something I even said the other day. I said the other
Definitely,
day,
definitely.
how do you deal with corruption? You know, many people say you guys get money and you guys siphoned off money or what. How can you do the sort of checking the money balances to ensure that nothing happens untoward? He was focusing so much on himself at that time, and then which gave
Yes.
ammunition to Mark Golden to come in and say, hang on a second, this. And the question was allegations. When there are issues about corruption, what the Prime Minister failed to understand, it is what do you do when there are issues about corruption above someone, isn't it? And he was saying he was scot-free. Nobody say you were guilty. The issue was gray area, isn't it, Malik?
Indeed. And the thing is still about the slick use of language. The right honorable Prime Minister said, there have been no suggestions of corruption. Yet he applied to the Supreme Court to have aspects of the said report redacted. Why would you do this?
Yes,
Why?
yes, yes. Well, that's very interesting. I just want to say thanks for those who are joining me on TikTok. There's over 104 persons on TikTok. If you want to watch it, you can go onto YouTube. As someone was saying a while ago, YouTube, look for Silburn TV, Sylbourne TV. You can find it, Sylbourne TV. It's going to start now, and you can go over there as well. Let us get back to the discussion.
Generation at a time.
Okay, they're doing commercials.
NCB ARC.
Yeah, and for those on Instagram as well, thank you so much, and just power share this
and
as well.
Jamaica Group.
Thank you so much. Yeah, let's watch this space. It's about to start now.
Listen,
I think.
decide, vote.
Welcome back to the Leaders Debate presented by the Jamaica Debates Commission. We invite you, the public, to send us your questions via direct message on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to Jamaica Debates. We now ask Dion Jackson Miller to start this segment with a question for Mr. Mark Golding.
Going back to the income tax proposal, Mr. Golding, because several people have been taking issue with your numbers. The PNP's assertion that it can fund the proposal through projected revenue growth doesn't seem to take into, as well as organic revenue growth, doesn't seem to take into account increase in expenditure. That's also projected, as well as low growth rates that no government in recent years has managed to overcome. Isn't it true that your numbers just don't add up?
The fiscal policy paper does project over the next 3 years some $160 billion of additional revenue. The degree to which there are accompanying expenses will depend on how we manage the expense side of the budget. There's also the fact that there's $360 billion of programs in the budget that represent the priorities of a given government at a particular point in time. When we are elected, we're not going to be elected to maintain the current trajectory that Jamaica is on. People want to see change. And most fundamentally, the issue really is the fact that we are coming to the end of the period of austerity, the period where Jamaica has been for 13 and a half years, steadfastly paying down debt. So the debt to GDP ratio, which we inherited at 147% of GDP at the beginning of 2012, is now, in this fiscal year, projected to achieve the target of 60% of GDP. Once that happens, we no longer have to reduce debt as a priority. We just have to maintain that debt profile. That will release resources of 2.5% to 3% of GDP, which is close to $90 billion of additional resources, which no longer have to be part of your primary surplus target. So we will be able to fund our program quite comfortably come April next year when the fiscal year starts.
Dr. Holness,
there is a song which says, when the rum tells you you're a big dancer. I don't know what the leader of the opposition was drinking. Firstly, the debt to GDP for this fiscal year is not projected to be 60%. It is projected to be 65% thereabouts. If the leader of the opposition is depending on growth to provide the revenues for $75 billion of expenditure, the country would have to grow between 8 and 10%, which has not done that since the 60s. Thirdly, yes, there are $300 billion of programs. What are these programs? Pharmaceuticals.
Thank you, Dr. Holness. Thank you, Dr. Holness. Our next question is from Giovanni Dennis, and it goes to Dr. Holness.
Dr. Holness, you said on February 7, 2016 in Sam Sharp Square, Montego Bay, within our first 100 days in government, we will start the legislative process to fix the general election date in Jamaica. It's been 3,490 days since. In your May 2016 budget debate, you further stated the country should not be distracted by protracted periods of uncertainty. Yet, that's exactly what happened with this year's election. After 2 consecutive terms in office, you have failed to deliver on this promise. Why?
Your research into this matter, I respect the question, is incomplete. At the calling of the 2020 general elections, I explained to the public in Parliament that our government actually started work on fixed election date, and we found that it was inconsistent with our constitutional arrangements. And therefore, we did not include it in our 2020 manifesto. It is no longer a part of our platform. More to that, however, is the fact that in seeking to have all of these previous considerations included, we went about putting in place a constitutional reform commission that would bring all the considerations for constitutional reform under an expert review. That expert review was thwarted by the opposition. So yes, these considerations were considered from 2016, but the reality of our constitutional arrangement made us take a different route, which is to go to a comprehensive constitutional reform, which was frustrated by the opposition.
Over to Mr. Golding to respond.
Just before I respond, just to point out that Mr. Holness's data is not current. The Fiscal Commissioner issued a release, I think it was today actually, indicating that with the National System of Accounts being updated, GDP has been adjusted, and we're now at 62% of GDP. That's what the debt is at the end of March this year, and we will more than likely achieve 60% this fiscal year. No, please, you're not entitled to do that. The flip-flopping from the Prime Minister is manifest. They were supposed to have impeachment. There's no impeachment. Fixed election day, no fixed election day. Ring fencing the NHT, they have taken over $130 billion out of the NHT. Cannot be trusted.
Just reminding that there's a format to the debate and asking the debaters to respect the format to which they have agreed. It's now time to go to the next question, social media. Amoy Harriet, over to you.
This question comes from Janine. Parliament has passed a constitutional amendment bill and a referendum bill to transition Jamaica into a republic. Could you clarify the economic and administrative implications of this transition and how you intend to ensure that the process doesn't distract from Jamaica's economic priorities like debt reduction, investment diversification, and public services?
That question goes to Mr. Golding first and then to Dr. Holness.
In answer to the question, we can whistle and ride. So we have done very well as a nation in reducing our public debt. We ensured that the fiscal rules were very strong with an algorithm, an equation in the fifth schedule to the Financial Administration Audit Act that determines the fiscal balance that must be hit by each year's budget. And that has ensured that successive governments have stayed on course to take it down to 60%. We can do constitutional reform, but it requires authentic consultation with the people. And there must be an effort to have bipartisan consensus on critical issues. And we have not been able to achieve that consensus yet on the critical issue of decolonization, in particular our final court, which is now the Privy Council, the King's Court, that makes orders in the name of the King, as opposed to the regional court, which has been established, the Caribbean Court of Justice, which Jamaica helped to design, helped to fund, and which has developed over the last 20 years a reputation for independence and excellence. There are aspects of the bills that are in Parliament now that we have big problems with. In particular, the fact that effectively it will allow the Prime Minister to appoint the President, because a simple majority of both houses will do it if we do not agree who that person is. I think that is wrong. I think that the President of the country must command the trust and confidence of both sides of the political aisle, and indeed the wider public.
Dr. Holness?
To be clear, the bills before Parliament do not give the Prime Minister the ability to appoint the President. We are the party that have advanced the greatest, the process of repatriating our sovereignty. I am a Jamaican through and through, and I want to see my country's sovereignty represented by a Jamaican. It puzzles me as to why the opposition is trying to frustrate this. The opposition says we must always consult the people, yet they do not want to consult the people on a fundamental architecture of our society, our final court of appeal. They are inconsistent, they are hypocritical, flip-floppers. They were the ones who nudged, encouraged, and agreed with the government that a process should be started for the repatriation of our sovereignty. Midway the process, they have turned around to say they have challenges with it. What is it that they really want? Are you truly a Jamaican?
It's time for our next question. It is from Dion Jax Miller, and it goes to Mr. Golding.
Mr. Golding, the PNP is promising a tax break for small businesses for the first 3 years of formally incorporating, as well as a raft of other targeted tax relief measures. How do you respond to criticisms that your tax plan reintroduces inefficiencies, tax avoidance, and corruption into the tax system that have been eliminated over the past 15 years?
First of all, I think the Prime Minister repeated innuendo or direct attack which has been leveled by his party on my nationality. And, you know, I just wanted to just make it absolutely clear that I am indeed born here as a Jamaican. Here is my birth certificate, and it shows I was born at the University Hospital on July 19th, 1965, and it's right here. I hope your camera can pick it up. And I have a copy for you, Prime Minister, right here. And I wish you could provide me with a copy of your certification, but of course you can't do so. Now, on the question of tax, it is there's a third schedule to the GCT Act now, which has a long list of items which are not subject to GCT that are exempt. We feel that laptops and other devices are critical tools of trade, and it is wrong to tax them, and we are going to add them to that list. And similarly, sports equipment, which is vital for social cohesion. Sports is a critical part of keeping young people away from straying down the wrong path and so on. Why are we taxing those items? That cost of living is already high. So I don't agree. The system we have already caters for items which should not be taxed. And we're simply saying we want to adjust those items to include things that should be there but are not yet there.
Dr. Holness?
The Jamaica Labour Party is the only political organization to have reduced taxes. We reduced the GCT from 16.5% to 15%. And we have done so in a way that has not compromised our revenues or the sustainability of future programs. All, and I repeat, all the tax suggestions and promises of the opposition will compromise our fiscal arrangements and place us back in debt or result in increased taxes. The best way to provide social services is to identify the persons who need it.
Thank you, Dr. Holness. Our next question is from Giovanni Dennis, and it goes to Dr. Holness.
The Rio Cobre is a major water source for the St. Catherine Plains and communities in and around Spanish Town. Yet since 2019, under your watch as Environment Minister, there have been close to a dozen chemical spills causing fish kills and disrupting lives. You say you're a champion of the environment. Why hasn't there been tougher sanctions for the repeated breaches of environmental permits by the companies culpable?
The Jamaica Labour Party has put in very tough sanctions, including the requirement for the provision of bonds. We are the only government to have called these bonds and brought polluters to court. We have also started the process of studying the Rio Cobre to ensure that there is no discharge into the Rio Cobre. And this is something that I am personally very serious about, and we will put in legislation to end discharge into the Rio Cobre. It becomes even more important as we have now put in place the Content Rio Cobre water project, for which we are pulling 15 million gallons of water from the Rio Cobre per day. So we must protect that asset, and I give the public my sincere commitment that we will protect the Rio Cobre.
Mr. Golding?
Quickly, just to say that the JLP is not the only party to have reduced taxes. The PNP reduced the personal income tax rate from 33% to 25%. We reduced the GCT rate from 17.5% to 16%. There's been reductions of taxes on both sides. They plan to reduce, they say, income tax from 25 to 15, which is going to help the rich and the ministers who pay themselves 200+% pay increases. On the environmental issue, you are the one who overturned NEPA's decision not to grant a permit for the mining of the Dry Harbor Mountains, which is a very sensitive nature reserve. You're flip-flopping again, Andrew.
Our next question is from social media. Over to Amoy Harriot.
Well, Archie, Delanor says many Jamaicans would like to see the full rollout of body-worn cameras on our police officers, even more so now, given the increase in fatal police shootings. Will this be something that you'll prioritize should you be elected?
Mr. Golding will respond first.
First of all, I think it's very important to acknowledge and commend the excellent work done by the police force over the last year and a half in bringing the rate of violent crime, in particular murders in the country, down from the intolerable levels where it had been under this government. More murders committed in Andrew Holness's 2 years in office than any other 2-year term in the history of Jamaica. The police have finally abandoned the failed policies that we did our best to stop, the mass use of states of emergency, which the court has ruled as unconstitutional, and have gone now to a much more targeted approach, a much more strategically sound approach. Having said that, we do feel that it's very important that the public as a whole must have trust and confidence in the police, because the police rely on intelligence and information from the public. And therefore, if the public feel that there's excessive use of force and there's no accountability for it, they're not going to be as cooperative as we need them to be. I think, therefore, it's in the interests of the Jamaican society and the police themselves to have the benefit of body-worn cameras, especially when they go on special operations. So there can be no question, nobody can accuse them wrongly of having used excessive force when the force was legitimate as used. And to the extent that there may occasionally be an excessive use of force, the persons are held accountable for that in accordance with the law. That's what the rule of law requires.
Dr. Holness?
The government is already in the process of procuring and acquiring body-worn cameras. Several thousands of them are under procurement and will be deployed shortly to the police force. We consider this as absolutely important in giving confidence to the public regarding the actions of the police force. And the police themselves want to have these cameras as protection for themselves. Interestingly, however, the leader of the opposition states that the states of public emergency did not work. Now, murders under the PNP increased to over 1,000 murders in 1997 and remained there for over 30 years. It is the Jamaica Labour Party in 3 consecutive years that have reduced murders by 55%. The states of public emergency worked. The states of public emergency were supported by the PNP when Peter Phillips was the leader of the opposition, and it reduced murders by 27%. Since we did not have the cooperation of the opposition, murders went up. A question must be asked: who is responsible for the increase in murders when there was a tool that could have saved lives? It is a serious question.
Now, Giovanni Dennis has indicated that he would like to ask one of his 2 follow-up questions. I believe that question will go to
Mr. Golding.
Mr. Golding.
Mr. Golding, I want to go back to the matter of your dual citizenship. It took days for you to confirm that you held dual citizenship and weeks for you to renounce it. Why didn't you acknowledge the issue upfront, and why should Jamaicans believe you will be forthcoming with them on any issue, even if it's uncomfortable in the first instance?
I didn't hesitate to acknowledge dual citizenship. I was born in Jamaica. I had a British father, and I inherited British citizenship by descent from him. And that's lawful under the laws of Jamaica. And indeed, parliamentarians in Jamaica are permitted to be dual nationals. I therefore didn't consider it to be something which was problematic. However, when it was raised last year and politicized, I decided I want to know what the Jamaican people felt about it, because I thought really my response ought to be driven by them. We did an internal poll. It showed that a majority thought I should renounce, and so I did. And I renounced my British citizenship in August last year.
Dr. Holness, rebuttal.
You know, this is a strange one. A man who wants to represent his country must choose his country. He doesn't need to ask anyone. You should choose. And that's why we say we choose Jamaica. It is indeed of concern that it was not until your 40s, when you were becoming a minister of government, that you sought to have a Jamaican passport. It is not your birth that makes you Jamaican. It is the choices you make for your country, including supporting a process that would make a Jamaican head of state here, including getting a Jamaican passport.
Our next question is from social media. Over to Amoy, and that question will go to Mr. Golding.
On TikTok, Taj says, given the current negotiations surrounding the U.S. Keep Cost Centers in America Act and its potential to impact over 50,000 Jamaican BPO workers, how does your administration plan to safeguard both employment and livelihoods for young Jamaicans if outsourcing opportunities decline?
That's a good question. And the truth is that the evolution of technology, especially the advent of artificial intelligence, is also a threat to the type of services that are provided through outsourcing. So we are going to have to ensure that we try and upskill our existing workforce so that they can be trained to do the type of tasks that technology isn't going to be as adept at dealing with as human beings. And we also have to provide other avenues for employment for young people. That's why we're going to establish the Youth Innovation Fund, which will provide grants and loans to young people to get them into business if they want to get into business. And it will enable them to pursue their talents in tech or in creative industries or any other area of endeavor so that they can express themselves, help to monetize their talent, and build brand Jamaica. And so those are the types of things that need to be done. We also want to emphasize training and the role of the private sector in training. We'll be giving an incentive, a dollar for dollar matching of all businesses who invest in upskilling and training. We will match their investment through the HEART program to encourage them to invest further in training and upskilling the workforce so they can employ more people in higher paying jobs. Right now, too many of our people are struggling in low income jobs, low wage jobs, low tech jobs.
The same question goes to Dr. Holness.
Well, let me give you some practical and real answers instead of airy-fairy stuff. Jamaica is already positioning itself for nearshoring and friendly shoring of the recalibration of the global supply chain. And that is why we have made a massive investment in the Caymanas development and in Raintree. These are real investments that will bring production to Jamaica and jobs to Jamaica. We have already started to ensure that over 120,000 Jamaican youths can access training free of cost under HEART. And much of that training is in support of not just BPO, but logistics. But more than that, we saw the change in technology coming and the impact it would have. And that is why we have invested in a coding and technology academy, the Amber Heart Academy, where hundreds of Jamaican youth are trained in not just the basics, but as high up as data science. Because what we want to create in our society are the trained skills that can attract the jobs that we are already negotiating for. You have a government that understands the changing global dynamics.
Thank you, Dr.
Putting
Holness.
in place measures to take advantage of it.
We'll now take a short break and we invite you to stay tuned.
The general elections debates are presented.
Okay, very interesting one. I want to thank for persons who are joining on the live. Welcome, and thank you so much for being a part of this discussion. It's got a bit more fiery, isn't it? Danmar, what do you say about so far? We don't have to go into that depth, but what do you say?
It has been very fiery and very dramatic. And I mean, the pre-debate show would have alluded to quite a number of points that would have been discussed now. I'm very pleased with the fact that the leader of the opposition took the opportunity to really reel out his bird survey ticket, because I must be honest with you guys, in Jamaica that was actually a topic of great contention, and it was a bit mysterious because there were some typical Jamaicans who really and genuinely thought that he wasn't born in Jamaica. And I want you guys to really understand that really affected their decision, or would have been affecting their decision on who to vote for, right? So I just wanted to get that one out of the way. On the whole point of impeachment, it's very interesting that came up again, because one of the things that we would have discussed at the law school was the fact that we ought to have mechanisms in place to fundamentally, or so to say, remove politicians who are corrupt or who engage in certain type of criminal activities. So yes. I'm really interested to see what will be the way going forward in resolving those issues. Right?
Okay, let me hear what Malik said. Just to give some good time between the breaks. Malik, what's your thoughts so far?
I was concerned with the use of personal pronouns by the Right Honourable Prime Minister. He used I and me in 7 or 8 instances in his answers. And this speaks to a more ego-based approach in terms of policies. Golding was able to give factual examples. For example, pun intended, the Rio Cobre River situation, and he mentioned about the Dry Harbor Mountain project and the way the government hadn't supported it. Looking at crime and the way the state of public emergency was declared unconstitutional.
Yes.
And so what I'm sensing here is that the Right Honourable Prime Minister seems to be deflecting and throwing stones, whereas the leader of the opposition is dealing with issues head on, which for me bodes well in terms of voting.
Can I just say, when the leader of the opposition pulled out his birth certificate, the question is to be asked, why now and not then? When lots of people are asking that question, why now and not then? Why not present it to the people before? Or is this the first time? I think I saw him did it on Andre Stevens' show at some point. What do you say about that?
Not everything good to eat, good to talk. You
Okay.
cannot, as a politician, respond to every criticism that comes through. Now, the issue of birth, place of birth is very important. It reminds me, Edward Seaga,
Yes.
when he was going up against Manley in the first election, and
Mm.
the question of his nationality came up. Now, the fact that he was born on sea en route to Jamaica became a major issue. Yet,
Yeah.
you cannot argue with his commitment to the country. And
Mm.
so, Golding responding when he did by explaining why he didn't respond immediately, then talking about consulting the Jamaican people, and then
Yes.
the beautiful act of drawing out the certificate was to me a classic. It was one of those
Yes.
TikTok moments,
Mm.
ambush in the night, to
Well,
paraphrase.
thanks for that. I'll make sure I've cut that and put it on TikTok to get some views.
That man, he's born not easy, you know, not easy.
I
But
must say,
I agree.
yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, man, I was just saying, I agree. I agree. Listen to me. Pulling out the birth certificate on the debate night when he has all the eyes of the Jamaican public is
Jamaica Group, Miss
Mic drop.
strategic. It's a chef's kiss because he hit my drop, right? Because nobody can question it anymore. You
No,
understand? They
nobody
can't
can
question it
cross it.
anymore. In fact,
all right.
can't
All
question
right.
it anymore.
We're not questioning it no more.
Presented by the Jamaica Debates Commission. We invite you, the public, again, to send us your questions via direct message on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to Jamaica
I'm going to
Debates.
share this, ladies
We
and
now
gentlemen.
ask Dion Jackson Miller to start this segment with a question for Dr. Andrew Holness.
2021, you were appointed to the Queen's Privy Council and the Ancient Advisory Body, and your administration's recent attempt at constitutional reform would have seen a removal of the British monarch from Jamaica's parliament and executive in phase one, but not from our judiciary. Opposition or no opposition, referendum or not, can you tell us your position, whether you support the removal of the Privy Council as Jamaica's final court, and if so, when?
My position is that Jamaica should have its own local court as its final appellate court. But I also do respect the Caribbean Court of Justice, of which we are a part of its original jurisdiction. I will say, however, that on a matter as important as this, that forms the architecture of our nation, the people must be consulted. And that is why I put in place a process that would begin these consultations in a practical and phased basis, a process which has been thwarted by the opposition. Now, the leader of the opposition raises questions about democracy. On one hand, he does not want to consult. He wants the government to just act without consulting with the people, but then turns around and says that we are the ones undermining democracy. The leader of the opposition must be consistent. Democracy requires us to consult the people on these critical matters.
Mr. Golding?
Yes, Mr. Holness, shortly before the visit of Prince William to Jamaica, became a member of the King's Privy Council. So one has to wonder how he was choosing Jamaica when he did that. Anyway, to answer the question, we want to follow the Constitution, and the Constitution has been ruled by the Privy Council as the highest court as not requiring a referendum for the decision as to whether or not the CCJ should become the final court replacing the Privy Council. And that is what we think ought to be done. No other country that has moved away from the Privy Council has had a referendum to do so, and there are good reasons for that.
Our next question is from Giovanni Dennis, and it goes to Mr. Golding.
Mr. Golding, the PNP under your leadership has flip-flopped on a number of issues. For example, Julian Robinson on May 16, 2023, said the opposition takes no issue with the massive salary increase for parliamentarians. The very next day, the PNP released a statement objecting to the increase. Why should Jamaicans trust that you won't similarly make about turns on promises you are making now?
When Julian said that in Parliament, he was referring to the principle of parliamentarians getting an increase. He wasn't addressing the specifics of what was being proposed. We hadn't had a discussion around those specifics. When we looked at the details and we saw the massive increase that the Prime Minister was proposing for himself and for his ministers, we felt it was unconscionable to do that in the context where the public sector workers had just had their salary negotiations under some duress in relation to the teachers in particular, finalized, and many of them were getting 20% over 2 years. That is why we had to clarify our position, because it was not in accordance with what we thought that principle demanded. Now, over time, thinking can evolve. People change their positions on issues. So, for example, we are looking at this whole question of the 3.5 salary, the $3.5 million threshold increase. And we've seen where, as the debt target is achieved and resources can be released, it can be afforded. We weren't calling for 3.5 2 years ago, but we see that the need, inflation, etc., have happened. Cost of living pressures are there. Our evolution, our thinking has evolved, and we think that this is the right thing to do now, and we're committing ourselves to it. So, you know, I don't think the criticism is justified.
Thank you, Mr. Golding. Dr. Holness now has...
I have to call out that the leader of the opposition is telling lies. Julian Robinson stood in Parliament and said he supported the increase. Clear, and the tapes are there. Secondly, he calls the increase unconscionable, yet he takes it. I, Andrew Michael Holness, did not take it. The option was available to him as well. I chose not to take it. The leader of the opposition says, I have 28 bank accounts. That is absolutely not true. The report of the Integrity Commission includes accounts that are closed, accounts that are dormant, insurance accounts, and investment accounts.
Thank you.
They have weaponized.
Thank you, Dr. Holness. Our next question is from Dion Jackson Miller, and it goes to Dr. Holness.
Dr. Holness, in your 2016 manifesto, you said, quote, will make it mandatory that the appointment to sensitive posts be approved by a 2/3 majority in each House of Parliament, thereby requiring consensus between government and opposition. Now, the posts identified included the Office of Director of Public Prosecutions. Not only did you not implement this, but you disregarded the opposition's objections in the case of the recent extension, which led to a court case. Wasn't this a betrayal of the principle of bipartisanship that you had been proposing 9 years before?
Absolutely not. And indeed, in some instances, there are parliamentary review of sensitive positions. And I want to be also very clear that the constitutional reform process that we have put in place would take into consideration all of these proposals that were made. We cannot tinker with the Constitution, doing a little thing here and a little thing there, and therefore we decided to put it in a comprehensive process, again, which the opposition has thwarted. But since I have some time, let me also address some other issues about the leader of the opposition. In my own Integrity Commission report published in Parliament, there were no findings of corruption. All my assets are in Jamaica, and I have declared everything to the Integrity Commission. The leader of the opposition, however, also had a report from the Contractor General previously, which found that they benefited from public resources in an irregular way. They termed it a sweetheart deal. In my report, there is no such thing. None of my resources are ever connected to any public funds or any public resources. However, for the leader of the opposition, the report was very clear that their operations were considered to be irregular and a sweetheart
Thank you,
deal.
Dr. Holness. Mr. Golding has an opportunity to respond.
The Prime Minister has no interest in bipartisanship. He has strong dictatorial tendencies and really would prefer not to consult with the opposition at all if he didn't have to. And I say that based on my experience with him over the last 5 years. He talks about he didn't want to tinker with the Constitution. Then why did he seek to amend the Constitution as a one-off, tabling the bill and seeking to pass it on the same day to extend the DPP's tenure beyond what was constitutionally allowed? That was tinkering, Prime Minister, so come on. And in terms of Integrity Commission reports, my declarations have been certified every year as being proper. Yours have not, because you are under investigation for illicit enrichment.
Mr. Golding. Our follow-up question now, Deon Jackson has indicated she'd like to use the first of her follow-up questions.
On the same issue of the DPP's appointment, Principal Dr. Holness doesn't require constitutional amendments, though. And if it is that you were committed to the principle of bipartisanship, why would you have rejected such strongly worded opposition coming from the opposition leader?
End of the day, this matter was taken to the court, and the courts decided, and the DPP was reinstated. I want to also clarify something that the leader of the opposition said. The investigations carried out by the Integrity Commission are at an end. I am not currently under any investigation. There were no findings of corruption or charges. The leader of the opposition continues to try to weaponize these things because that is the only crutch he has to stand on. I, Andrew Holness, am thoroughly transparent.
Thank you, Dr. Holness. Thank you, Dr. Holness. Mr. Golding has the opportunity to respond.
Again, Andrew Holness is being disingenuous and tricky. The Integrity Commission referred his matters to the Financial Investigations Division, a law enforcement agency charged with investigating serious financial crimes, for further investigation. What was his response? When there was a vacancy at the head of it, he sought to appoint or influence the appointment of somebody who is his close personal friend and who had said publicly on nationwide radio that he didn't see anything wrong in the report on Mr. Holness's financial situation, the Integrity Commission's report. It was clearly a set-up job, and we feel that very strongly that this needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Golding. Our next question is from social media. I'm going to hand over to Amoy.
Malik on Facebook says, many Jamaicans feel the economic growth that's been reported hasn't lowered their grocery bills or electricity costs. How do you measure economic success beyond the statistics?
Dr. Holness has the opportunity to respond first.
The first measure is income. And 280,000 jobs have been created in Jamaica, which means that more Jamaicans have income. There is a rise in income. Let's look at the minimum wage. The Jamaica Labour Party government has tripled the minimum wage. So there are more Jamaicans earning more at the lower levels of our country. Further, access to basic amenities. 350,000 Jamaicans have access to potable water. And in our next term, we will ensure that the 900,000 Jamaicans which now don't have reliable or full access to water will have access to water. Transportation, public transportation. We have done an amazing job in reducing bus fares and increasing the convenience and efficiency of public transportation, including implementing a rural bus fare system. On electricity, we have reduced the GCT on electricity, a promise made by the previous government and not kept. We have done it in a sustainable way. But more importantly, we have not placed any new taxes on the people of Jamaica since our government has been managing the fiscal affairs of this country.
Mr. Golding has an opportunity to respond.
First of all, I think the question is sound because statistics don't tell the full picture. Jamaica's competitiveness has been falling, yet they say that we have record low unemployment. Several 100,000 Jamaicans are outside the labor force and are not measured for that purpose. And indeed, you're regarded as being employed if you're employed 1 hour a week. 55% of Jamaicans are suffering from food insecurity. That is what the United Nations says, the FAO, which is an agency of the UN, says. 55% of Jamaicans are not getting adequate nutrition. That is not consistent with prosperity or low poverty rates or low unemployment rates. As for transportation costs, those are extremely high for many Jamaicans, which is why we want to introduce the RIDE program, a subsidy for rural children to help them to get to school in an affordable way. It's $10,000 per child who needs it in each family. So if you have more than one child, each one of them would qualify for this, because we recognize that that is one of the causes of absenteeism in schools at the moment. As for electricity, the rate and cost of electricity under this government has gone way higher than where we left it at 23 cents per kilowatt hour. Now it's over 40. And as for the GCT, they are providing a subsidy at the moment, but they haven't said for how long, and there's no commitment to keep it on.
Thank you, Mr. Golding. We are now going to be taking a short break, and we invite you to stay tuned.
The general elections debates are presented by the Jamaica Debates Committee.
The reason why you see me moving up and down, because TikTokers have asked me to actually show them the screen. So I turned my phone to their monitor. So they are now getting active and the views have been shut up. So I'm trying to facilitate a lot of persons. People are all over the States. They're watching live from anyway. What do you guys think about this? While you guys can speak as to how these interactions are going on. You can go ahead, Malik. Go ahead, Malik. Yeah.
I was saying I could feel Danmar's energy coming through the screen. So I'll go and just concede to my learned colleague in this one.
I call him the revolutionary leader.
Yes, sir. Cool now.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, viewers. I must say that this one was very interesting. Certain allegations were made by the leader of the opposition, which I find to be very serious. As a student of the law, when you make certain allegations, you must have proof. He said that the Prime Minister was appointed the new head of the FID, which, according to the leader of the opposition, is a close personal friend, because the report from the Integrity Commission was referred to the FID. Now, I find that to be a very serious allegation, right? And I think it will cause a lot of heads now to be turning, primarily because certain requirements were even removed for the head of the post. I will lie to you, this one is a bit spicy, a bit confrontational. I see one of my colleagues said, I don't know if they'll even shake hands after this round because of how personal it got. But, the debates have been pretty interesting so far.
I do notice, though, sorry, Mohammed, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
No, to follow on from Danmar's point there, Golding was able to give context to it because of the public statements that had been made prior to the reports coming through. And this would imply, even from a legal position, bias, because it was said in the public realm. And one of the key statements that Golding made, which I find rather impressive, is when answering the issue about statistics. and the measurements of growth. He said, and I quote, statistics don't tell the full picture. And I'm sensing here that the personal attacks are lowering and distracting from the main focus, which ought to be convincing us as voters who we should vote for.
There's something I was seeing as well. I was saying it would be so great if people were able to be looking at their manifestos, PNP manifesto and GLP manifesto, and the moderators could be actually going through the manifestos, keeping the policies, because what you're seeing is a tit for tat bit where Andrew Holness keep reeling on the fence, trying to defend his bit regarding salary increase, defend his bit regarding integrity. Marky G is dealing with his birth certificate. It's becoming a bit too personal, isn't it? And now people are looking in now. People are saying, hang on a second. I don't care about this. I want to hear the policies on education, the policies on health. Do we hear anything on health? Have we?
Not yet.
Okay. Have we heard anything?
It has been lost. It has been lost.
Yeah. Have we heard anything on tourism?
Not yet.
No.
Okay.
No. Well, not yet. I don't think at all at this point.
Hold on. It's 4:05. It's 4:05, bro. It's almost finished. So therefore, as someone will say, it's not even a slam dunk. It's like they miss the point, and I'm gonna blame the moderators and the questioners. They're actually not doing a good service and not going to do justice so far. That's all I'm going to say for now. Anyway, it's going to start. Anyway, what do you guys think about that? And what those listeners say about that? What do you guys say about that as well on TikTok? Do you believe the manifesto is being highlighted, amplified? Yeah.
From my side, anyway. I definitely agree. Definitely agree with
Jamaica
that
Group
statement. I think that it has been lost in the personal attacks.
Yes. Yes. So. Yes. Unfortunately. Anyway, let's see what they say.
Welcome back to the final segment of the Leaders Debate. Presented
Final
by
segment,
the
guys.
Jamaica Debates
Not much going to come out now. It's
invite
final.
you, the public, to send us your questions via direct message on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to Jamaica Debates. Now, this segment actually begins with a follow-up question. Giovanni Dennis has indicated that he'd like to ask one of his follow-up questions, and that goes to Dr. Andrew Holness.
Dr. Holness, on the matter of your government's hostility towards accountability institutions, in a world where journalists reporting on the conflict in Gaza are being murdered, the constant attacks on the press in Jamaica by both political parties undermine press freedom and has been reflected in Jamaica's slippage on the World Press Freedom Index. We have just seen the release of the names of journalists that both political parties objected to participating in the national debates. Why do both parties continue to undermine press freedom and put journalists in danger?
To be clear, my political party does not undermine press freedom. To be clear, my political party did not object. The objections came from the PNP. And historically, it is the PNP that has been vociferous, including attacking a particular radio station. I personally have stayed away from any negative commentary about any journalists. Journalists are important, and I support strong journalism. And I want to make that absolutely clear. In the time I have, I will rebut. I am in no way associated with the head of the FID. My understanding is that the head of the FID is a friend of the leader of the opposition.
Thank you, Dr. Holness. Mr. Golding has the opportunity to respond.
Press freedom is a fundamental pillar on which democracy is based, and I and my party fully support press freedom. The Prime Minister said something which was untrue when he said that only our side objected to some journalists. Their side also objected. In fact, we objected to 3, they objected to 4 journalists, and the matter was eventually resolved, and here we are. And the truth is that some journalists in the country are not as independent as others, are not as professional as others, and it is quite legitimate to criticize persons who you don't feel are living up to the standards of their profession. But we would never do anything to threaten or undermine press freedom, or indeed to make any journalist feel unsafe. And if it ever happens, we'll take out whatever it needs to stop it happening.
Thank you, Mr. Golding. Our next question is from Dion Jax Miller, and it goes to Mr. Golding.
Mr. Golding, Coswell Barnett is a blind Jamaican who is also a very experienced and very qualified teacher, but who was out of a job for 4 years. Now, your manifesto promises to protect the right of persons with disabilities. Those Jamaicans are disproportionately affected by poverty. Vision 2030 says that governments haven't been living up to a reserve a percentage of public sector jobs for persons with disabilities. That would have helped people like Mr. Barnett and others like him. Would a PNP government implement such a recommendation?
Thank you for that question, Dion. I come from a family that has delivered transformational national service to the country, in particular in the area of persons with disabilities. My father was the first orthopedic surgeon in Jamaica, and he established what was then the Polio Center, became the Mona Rehabilitation Center. And when he died in 1996, it was named after him. It's now called the Sir John Golding Rehab Center. He also established the Hope Valley Experimental School, a school for integrated education for able-bodied and children with disabilities. 2 parliamentarians went to that school, and he established the National Road Safety Council, because of his awareness of the fact that many people who end up with disabilities is as a result of road traffic accidents. I am, and we are very committed to implementing the UN Convention for the Persons with Disabilities, which Jamaica was the first country in the hemisphere to sign. And we are the ones who passed the Disabilities Act, brought it to Parliament. This government took 7 years to bring it into effect. We're glad it's in effect, but it needs to be actualized now in practice so that persons with disabilities feel and see the benefits of it. We are fully committed to that, and we are going to establish a National Disabilities Fund to aid persons with disabilities so that they can have their assistive aids, they can get help to establish themselves in business at home, and improve sidewalks for their transportation. We are committed to the community of persons with disabilities.
Dr. Holness has the opportunity to respond.
To be clear, one of the things that I'm very proud of is that my administration has reserved under special orders through the NHD houses for persons with disability. They have a direct access. Under the new social housing program, we make it a point of duty to support persons with disabilities, and many persons with disabilities have benefited. Our administration have brought into effect the Disabilities Act. We continue to support the disabled community with grants and an increase in path benefits. Our government is committed to supporting persons with disability in Jamaica.
Dion Jax-Miller has indicated that she would like to take her second follow-up question.
Yes, Mr. Golding, we hear the broad statements of policy and principle, but what persons with disabilities want are jobs, which is why I'm asking specifically if your administration would implement a recommendation to reserve a certain percentage of public sector jobs for persons with disabilities.
Yes, we have committed to that across MDNAs, ministries, departments, and agencies, that we would like to see quotas or allocation for the disability community to have the benefit of employment opportunities in the public sector. But we also recognize the need to ensure that those who have the capacity to deliver services or to make things at home are empowered to do so. And that's why we have the National Disabilities Fund, which we will establish to help them to get a start in life in the area of business and fulfill their talents and monetize their talents so they can uplift themselves and their families from their homes. So yes, we're fully on board with the idea that you mentioned, Jan.
Dr. Holness, the rebut?
Most definitely. We will do that, and we will do more. In fact, at the Office of the Prime Minister, we do make it a point of duty to ensure that persons with disabilities are employed at the Office of the Prime Minister, and we will give that directive, if it is not already in effect, to all the ministries. But more than that, people with disabilities want to be independent, and they want to work independently, many of them. And we, through various initiatives, including through the various development funds that we have, will provide resources to persons with disability so that they can start their own businesses. And I think that is really the critical thing, to ensure that our persons with disability are independently earning income.
Our next question still goes to Dr. Holness, and it comes from Giovanni Dennis.
Dr. Holness, Communities like Charlemont, Birdsucker, Acadia, and many others across the corporate area have complained and have taken the government to court for inadequately regulated developments. Justice Hart Hines, in a 2021 ruling, said the KSAMC and NEPA have been dilatory in their mandate to enforce local planning laws and regulations. In December 2021, he said work was being done to restructure the entire approval process, yet the issues persist. Why isn't more being done to force the KSAMC and the NEPA to do their jobs to enforce the building regulations?
When that comment was made, the situation was as you have said. Since then, there have been significant improvement in enforcement and including a new planning order for Kingston and St. Andrew, which clarifies many of the issues that were in contention, including we have included more inspection officers at the KSAMC, and there are more cases now being brought to court which are being prosecuted. So there has been an improvement. However, I believe that there is still much more work to be done in terms of increasing the enforcement capabilities. And yes, there are some legislative changes that need to be clarified, particularly as to how titles are issued and how densities are approved.
Mr. Golding has the opportunity to respond.
Since the People's National Party assumed the leadership in the council of the KSAMC, the new Mayor Andrew Swaby has been pursuing internal governance reform, including persons from outside to try and improve standards and processes, make them more transparent and effective so that the citizens of the corporate area can expect higher levels of governance. I think it's unfortunate that in the case of Mr. Holness and his wife, they are in the business of real estate development, or certainly she is, and that presents serious conflicts of interest which have manifested themselves in some of their own schemes that they've developed. I think we need to have rules which preclude that kind of activity so that there's no question of conflicts of interest.
We've come to the point in the debate when the debaters get an opportunity to ask each other questions. We begin, we invite Mr. Golding to ask a question of Dr. Andrew Holness.
Mr. Holness, the Integrity Commission in their court filing in the case that you brought to try and strike down the act and eliminate the offense for which you are being investigated, have said that you had money in the Ponzi scheme Olint and you got it out, while others suffered losses. You had money in Cash Plus, another Ponzi scheme where people lost lots of money, you got it out. And of course, you had money in SSL and you were able to withdraw your money before it collapsed. In fact, I would say the only person that Usain Bolt has not been able to catch up with is you. And I want to ask you, how do you think and why do you think the people of Jamaica should trust you to be in charge of the governance of the country for a third term with that track record and with that cloud hanging over your head?
The leader of the opposition is a liar and cannot be trusted. I lost money in Cash Plus and Olint. However, the PNP accepted and received $1 million from Olint. He has no credibility to talk about Ponzi scheme. They benefited from the Ponzi scheme to fund their election campaign. He questions my wife's integrity about development. My wife and my family are hardworking Jamaicans. We started off with taxes like many other Jamaicans, and I have worked hard. He has sought to weaponize that. But the people who receive me when I go into the country, they say, Andrew, don't worry. No weapon formed against you shall prosper.
Mr. Golding, your rebuttal.
I've made the point that for the Prime Minister and his wife to be in the real estate business when so many of the agencies of government which regulate that business fall under his ministry of economic development and job creation creates the possibilities for conflicts of interest, and I stick by that position.
We now invite Dr. Andrew Holness to ask a question of Mr. Mark Golding.
The leader of the opposition speaks about integrity and trust. He was an advisor to a former Minister of Finance that put in place a policy of high interest rate, for which he acted as a broker for the government to invest loans and bonds for which he received a commission of high interest rate, to the point where one of his members described this as the greatest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich. He, the Toponaris lawyer, has made billions of this, yet he does not disclose this in his integrity report. In fact, he doesn't even have a house in Jamaica. How can we believe you? And do you have assets in overseas companies for which you have not disclosed?
I've disclosed all my assets, and that's why my Integrity Commission declarations are certified. Your allegations are scurrilous and false. You made reference to DB&G, although you didn't call the name. DB&G was established in 1992 as an investment firm by 3 young Jamaican entrepreneurs. When the financial sector meltdown occurred some years later, and FinSAC was established as a response to try and protect the savers of this country so they didn't lose their money in their deposits in the banking system and their pensions and so on, DB&G, like other financial firms at the time, had to navigate that carefully to survive. We eventually were approached by a leading international bank, Scotiabank, who did a thorough due diligence on the company. It's a listed company where we were a listed company from inception. Our audited financial statements are public. Our quarterly financial statements are public. They looked at us inside out and upside down, found nothing, absolutely nothing untoward, and they bought the company. And we have nothing to hide on when it comes to DB&G. I would say, why is your government, having spent $200 million on this commission of inquiry into FinSAC, hiding the FinSAC report? Is it because you and your wife bought a house from somebody who had been FinSAC'd? You're a hypocrite, Andrew Holness, to be accusing me of anything in relation to FinSAC when you have been a direct beneficiary of the losses of somebody who was FinSAC, who lost their home because of FinSAC.
Again, you go to attacking my wife when you, according to the Contractor General's report, benefited from a sweetheart deal that was irregular. You benefited off the backs of the Jamaican people in creating your wealth. You were a connected party with the then Minister of Finance, and you advised and created the FinSAC debacle with high interest rate. You benefited from FinSAC. I did not purchase a FinSAC house. I bought a house on the open market. And again, you come with weaponized lies. Your lies will not work.
We now go to closing statements. Now, based on the earlier coin toss, Mr. Mark Golding of the PNP will go first.
The general election next week, Wednesday, presents a historic opportunity for the people of Jamaica. After 13.5 years of belt tightening and austerity, we are finally in a situation where the debt to GDP ratio has achieved or is on the cusp of achieving the 60%, which was written into the fiscal rules by Portia Simpson Miller. That means that the fiscal rules and prudent economic management can change gear and look at how we can grow the economy and build a society with a better quality of life for all. We see some serious issues that need to be addressed. 700,000 Jamaicans or thereabouts live on public land, lands where they've built their homes, but they don't have titles. The colonial era law set the period as 60 years of occupation before they can get ownership. We are going to reduce that to 25 years. We're going to give them titles. And that is going to unlock over $1 trillion of wealth, which is now sealed up and quarantined in the old colonial era law that is still on the books. That is why also we're increasing the threshold to 3.5 million. So working families who are struggling to make ends meet can get a little break so they can live a better life. It's why we're going to be removing the tax from the overtime pay of workers earning up to $6 million so they can make it easier in life as well. And when I govern the country as Prime Minister to serve you, I will ensure that accountability and transparency are at the center of what we do, and any hanky-panky Any violation of the public trust will be met with the full force of the law with no protection from me. And that is a huge difference between the government I will lead and the government of Andrew Holness. That is why I'm asking you, on election day, next Wednesday, vote for the People's National Party, put your X beside the head, time come for a better life.
We now invite Dr. Andrew Holness of the JLP to go ahead with your closing statement.
The administration that I lead on your behalf has cut the debt in half. We have created 280,000 new jobs, brought in 85,000 persons into the labor force. We have tripled the minimum wage. We have cut murders by 55% over the last 3 years. You have had no new taxes to worry about. This administration has taken on the previously thought of impossible to solve problems, and we have solved them. We are an administration of performance. In our next term, our pensioners who have worked so hard will get a break. Those earning $6 million or below will pay no income tax. We will give a new income tax rate, which will be graduated, which will see everyone paying lower taxes. You will see 60,000 more houses being brought on the market, with 15% of them dedicated to young people. We will give incentives to developers to build houses for young people. You will see a new transportation system for rural school children coming into being. You will see more work being done on reducing electricity. Our government is a government of performance. This election is about a clear choice: promise or performance. That's what it is. You have to make a decision. Who can deliver? It is this administration that has taken on the difficult problems, and we have delivered for you. I ask you on election day to vote for what is best for Jamaica. Vote for a government that performs. Vote for the Jamaica Labour Party.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Holness. Thank you, Mr. Golding. In the good spirit of the debates, we now invite Dr. Holness and Mr. Golding to shake hands. And now we can breathe. That concludes the leadership debate between party leader Dr. Andrew Holness, representing the Jamaica Labour Party, and party leader Mr. Mark Golding, representing the People's National Party. Our sincere thanks to both party leaders and all the debaters. This was the final debate in the 2025 General Election Debate Series. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to our studio audience, our production crew, production and funding partners, and most of all, our viewers and listeners all across Jamaica and the diaspora. I am Archibald Gordon. Good night.
Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen of the round table, TikTokers, Instagram, Facebook. I don't know how to start. Who's gonna bell the cat? Who's gonna start? Malik. Age before
All right.
beauty.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me on the platform, and thanks to the viewers for bearing with us as we give our perspectives. The debate was not as good as, for example, the one we saw a few days ago. Overall, I thought the questions were fairly loaded, and they could have been a wider range of questions with regards to the economy, because that would impact the answers that we received. There was too much emphasis on this whole issue of corruption and integrity, right? And the back and forth on that became very personal. I was a little uncomfortable when Golding mentioned Holness's wife. However, she is in the public sphere. She is Speaker of the House. And so this association makes her fair game contextually.
So let's stick a pin. So what you're saying, even though the prime minister sort of, you could sense he say taking it personal, you're gonna touch my wife. But what you're saying is that, hang on a second, she's the Speaker of the House, she's a member of Parliament, so it's fair game.
Indeed.
Okay.
Indeed. Purely contextually.
Yes.
Right? Overall, with regards to body language, I thought Golding came across as very clear, statesmanlike. A wonderful touch, two wonderful touches when he brought out the age paper, as my grandmother said, and when he mentioned the disability issue and went straight to his father. Personal stories from a public speaking perspective are always very impactful. And it was good for me to hear about his lineage in that way for the public. Overall, he answered the questions, statesmanlike, as I mentioned before. Again, came across relatable. He was not trying to excuse his quote unquote privileged background, but to give context as to why him being in politics is a choice. He came with clear facts on the Constitution. He was erudite, informed, and as we know, you cannot mention anything constitutional with Golding and expect a fair fight. He knows what he's talking about. And more importantly, he gave examples that were relatable to us as Jamaicans. And so, bearing this in mind, I will be boldly say that, yet again, it's 3 for 3. Based on the criteria I'd mentioned before, I firmly know that Golding had the edge over Holness in this debate.
Okay, thank you for that, Malik. Mr. Clark, revolutionary leader, as I always call you all the while. what's your take on this?
To be honest with you, I feel as though Malik really hit the hammer on the nail's head. It was pretty clear. You understand me? What I will say though is that I get it. His wife is in the public sphere. She's a part of the house. So, sir, you can allude to certain things, but what I didn't want was the debate to take a turn where it seems as if we're making personal attacks, like mentioning, certain type of benefits that weren't so relevant as to what members of the citizens really wanted to hear. So my feedback is that I really wish that they had taken the opportunity to really pick apart both manifestos to look at the feasibility of the policies and how it will impact the life of the regular citizen in Jamaica. So look at it this way. Yeah, we got a very dramatic piece tonight, but coming out of this debate, what are we really going to talk about tomorrow? I wanted to say, all right, this policy is someone good. It will improve my life as a young Jamaican. I'm voting for this guy. But we didn't have that. You get me? So now I'm left with going back to each manifesto to wait in mind to say, okay, I'll pick this one, I don't like that one. And tonight should have really been an opportunity where each leader used the time to just hammer down their key points and the key policies they want to implement that would really attract voters that would be on the fence. So yeah, it was a dramatic piece, but we expected more. What I would say though, in terms of discussion that really caught my attention was the whole topic of constitutional reform. We're still not yet decisive as to keeping the Privy Council and moving over to the CCJ, right? I do agree with the Prime Minister so far as we need to do a referendum. I think that's the right approach. You get me? We need to really hear how the citizens feel about that. That's one thing I want to look at. In terms of housing, I really thought that the leader of the opposition could have taken the opportunity to really hammer down the whole policy of rent to own. In my generation, I can tell you, young people are very eager, very interested in owning their own home. In terms of healthcare, I really thought that we should have discussed what the plans would be in terms of improving the current hospitals in Jamaica, the establishment of new hospitals. Remember, there are discussions of making Portmore a parish, so that should have came up in terms of establishing hospitals there and what would be the final decision in terms of making it a parish, right? I thought we should have probably discussed if there be any new taxes, kind of broad brushed a little bit, but to discuss if there be any new taxes to look out for. If none, well, so be it. I thought that the discussion kind of get swept up a bit about dual citizenship and so on. But hey, September 3 will be there, and regardless, of what was discussed tonight, the decision will be made by the citizenry. So yeah.
So if you were to, and we all know that debates don't win an election, but of course we have been seeing a particular trend. The first debate, the second debate, the third debate. You don't have to give it a call, but what would you call, if anything, as who has the edge? If we're going to look at the prime minister and the leader of the opposition in a debate, who do you say have an edge? If you want to give a call.
In terms of tonight's debate, I have no problem making the call. In terms of performance, I'm going to be honest with you. The leader of the opposition kind of edged out the prime minister a bit in these debates. But I'm going to be honest with you again. Whoever wins the debate, to be honest with you, it's just, should I put it now? It's really public discussion, a public discourse. We don't really have a bearing per se too much, right? Because I feel as though most Jamaicans have really made up their minds at this point. The debate is really just a mechanism of just really hammering, of marketing, so to speak, really hammering down your key pointers, right? We'll discuss it tomorrow at work. We'll laugh about it. We'll talk about the whole bursary ticket part. We'll talk about what they should have done. But trust me, it won't have no bearing on the man on September 3rd, right? So yeah, those are my views.
If I bring this point, what about the moderators? And I alluded earlier that the key aspect of the manifestos, as I wrote down here, I did not hear anything on health, fundamental on education, nothing on tourism. Do you think that people are sort of was saying, hang on a second, I wasn't here for some cussing at some match like this. I wanted to hear issues on the policies. I was advising people tonight, what you can do is have the PNP manifesto and have the JLP manifesto, and then you'll have the moderators will be scrutinizing it. Did that happen?
No. And this speaks to what we mentioned earlier about the quality of the questions. Because if we should analyze the data in terms of the questions, we would see that the questions were really leaning in one direction overbearingly. The whole issue of corruption.
Yes.
The question around disabilities got 2 to 3 questions, back to back,
I agree, Cookie.
Right? Yeah. And because of the quality of the questions, it led to the impact of the answers.
Yes.
But this is where I feel that even though, and especially as politicians, you don't answer what you're asked, you say what you want to portray to the public. So you could have, irrespective of what questions were asked, you could have easily introduced your agenda and your policies on certain things. And this is where I feel there was a weakness on both parts here. Because if I, as Danmar said, if I was waiting on today to decide who to vote for, it wouldn't impact me at all. Because you haven't spoken to things that will really impact me. Like tomorrow now, how this is going to impact the quality of my life. We know that politicians have questionable dealings, to say the least, from time to time. So who is less tea from who doesn't really impact my pocket, but the light bill will, taxes will, bus fare will. And what have you said to reassure me that come tomorrow, come next week, I should put my X wherever I want to place it? And this is where I am of the perspective that they should have used their political acumen and intelligence a bit more to answer the things that would be relevant in line with the manifesto, rather than being caught on the rabbit hole.
So therefore, just like when the Prime Minister and Mr. Golden will come back on particular issues, they could have actually come in and said, well, in tourism, well, in that, instead of going back and trying to defend themselves in every different corner.
Very much so.
And another thing which I sort of thought about, as the moderators kept alluding to corruption, and the Prime Minister keep alluding to corruption, and Mr. Golden hitting on corruption, it brought up the point which I said in the part this morning. It's unfortunate you're not hearing the parties collectively speaking about how we can then stem corruption. Because what? One, if Marky G talk about corruption, Andrew is going to talk about corruption and say, you got this, sir, me can go this, sir. I hit you with FinSac, I hit you with Trafagiro, I hit you with SSL or whatever like that. And people are going to say, backside. Sorry. Them stay the same way. Me don't know if we vote for now. So people are now going to, I think people are going to be saying, I'm lost now. I'm thinking that people are actually saying, the undecided who was there tonight, maybe saying, I'm sorry, I'm not anywhere better. So they're going to go for maybe who I believe is less corrupted. Is that a good way, Danmar and Malik and viewers and TikTokers?
No.
It's not a good way, but it's just the reality. Because I'm gonna tell you something.
Yeah.
One of the things I realize in Jamaica is really about narrative, you know. Because now the JLP's narrative is that the PNP is corrupt. Look at what they did to us with FinSac, and then the PNP is gonna say the JLP is corrupt. Look at what they did to us. So it's a constant tit for tat regarding who's corrupt, who's less corrupt, and I think ultimately it's a factor that I think any well-minded Jamaica should consider, but ultimately get lost in annals of conversation, to be honest with you, because Jamaica traditionally does have an issue with corruption. Yeah.
Well, it's difficult to really. You can see the prime minister was defending his position, and you see he's speaking to his base, because if you listen to what he's saying, is a lot of what his base is actually saying when it comes on to who is more corrupted, and when it comes on to that he's not guilty of anything. But the question which was asked wasn't whether you're guilty or not, was how you're going to deal with the cloud around your head and all those sort of things. And I it's difficult for me to give it a call, in a way, to be honest with you, to say Marky G won or to say PNP won. I'm actually gonna say none of them won. I'll say the Jamaican people lost. That's what I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna say none of them won. The Jamaican people lost in a way. That's how I'm gonna be calling this particular one in a way, because, and I think what I would encourage each party officials, Mark Gold and the PNP, to do now is to lay off, just take this opportunity now to educate people on the policies. Really focus on the policies, education, tourism, crime, health, and all those sort of things there. That's how I see it, as well. So, any last word, guys?
Yeah, glad that the debate took place. Glad it's over. We're now at the finishing line.
Yes.
Moving forward, it would be more reassuring to understand in layman's terms what your policies are, what you stand for. There was too much of a distraction and the personal attacks, etc., which got rather boring at times because we are left no more informed than when we came in. However, we are a resilient people.
Yes.
And irrespective of how things turn out next week, we still have to navigate the vicissitudes of life and deal with the cost of living. Yes. I just trust that as we go to the polls, we will think about Jamaica 20, 30 years' time and think about how we will be positioning ourselves within the geopolitical space and the future of our land, and therefore the greatest resource, which is our people. I trust that when we vote, we will think about those things, irrespective of how we vote. Because right now, this is bigger than just party, It's Jamaica first, party second. And whoever truly has Jamaica's interest at heart is how we should be proceeding. Because we're living in a very strange world right now. AI, the impact of global politics, etc. And what we have in Jamaica is so special. We have to be able to see ourselves in the global context, but by drilling down into the things that make us unique. Our culture, our food, our way of expressing ourselves, our higher intelligence. The running and the reggae music are a given, but we are so much more than that. We are an intellectual hub, and I trust that as we vote, we will think Jamaica first at all times.
Thank you. And revolutionary leader, Danmar Clark.
Yes, I agree with my colleague Malik. in going to the polls, we really have to ensure that we have Jamaica's best interest at heart. Interestingly for me, I'm actually seeing ahead of the elections, because I can tell you something. Irrespective of the results, come September 3rd, both parties will have to do or make significant changes and arrangements, right? Both internal, obviously national, in terms of policies, right? So that's where my mind is at. I
Yeah.
encourage all citizens in Jamaica to take the opportunity, because then everything is online now. I really encourage them to take the opportunity to really browse the manifestos and really identify a few policies that they feel is workable, and let that be the conversation, right? To guide our decision making. I really hope, and I see the changes. I'll give you a little story. I went to the tax office today, and I heard a little gentleman. He was no more than a mechanic, mere mechanic, full of grease and oil on his hands. And the level of conversation I heard him having with his colleagues at the tax office, as first I came with him, he showed that he was actually reading, right? And he was able to debunk the theories out there, and make some really good arguments. And I really like that. It says to me that more and more the culture of being a diehard is dying. Persons will come out and dress in the colors and still vote you out. So let me tell you something. Persons are going to the polls, and they know what they're voting for. Even at the
Yes.
constituency level, people are
Yes.
looking at what the different persons would have done, right? In terms of water, internet, scholarships, technological devices, right? Food and nutrition, in terms of assisting students to go back to school, bursaries and all that. So let me tell you something. People are going to be voting along those lines. Don't get me wrong, we do have a attack on democracy in the form of vote buying, but that's just one thing. I'm going to still take your money and still vote you out, right? So I'm saying to you, my final word is the people must indeed vote for performance. And I'll never be biased, or none of us should be biased on that, right? We
Yes.
have to vote
Yes.
on performance and how we feel, right? And those are my final words.
And and somebody just mentioned this. Mark Golden is calm, composed, and very articulate. And I must confess that if I to compare both leaders, I would say Mark Golden is composed, calm, and very articulate in a sense. And when you think about Jamaica and where we want Jamaica to go, if I was to be in a position to choose, and I'm not in a position to choose like Denmark, I'd want to give an opportunity to Mark Golden to sort of take Jamaica to the next stage. And I tell you one of the reasons why. Because he alludes a lot on the issues of corruption, and that is something which is dear to me as much as possible. And I believe that the whole, you know, the prime minister did say, recall, and he did mention about impeachment, and he did mention about fixed term, and that didn't happen. And Mark Golding is saying the same thing to the PNP, and we just hope that it will happen this time. And then the whole issue regarding the the, the constitution reform, I don't see the JLP progressing those in the way as they said they would have. 9 years too late to say you're going to do it now. And of course, the prime minister said something. He said in 2020, they took it off the table. Remember they said they took something off the table?
He did say
I
that.
did. I didn't know that.
Mm.
And lots of people were talking about where's the whole issue regarding impeachment. Which one did he say they took off the table? Which one did he say took off the table, Dunmar?
Fixed election date is one, and there's another one that he said that they had reviewed it and decided against it. But fixed election date
Yeah.
is one.
So therefore, you have to understand and say, hang on a second. That was part of your manifesto. And then you took it off after you review it. But did you have that conversation with the people who actually put you in power? Someone said, I think I heard Miss Minister of Foreign Affairs said they saw the UK and they felt it wasn't right based on the UK. So I said, hang on a second. I thought you're trying to leave the UK. You're not follow fashion in the UK and stuff like that. And they said they took it off the table. So therefore, who is going to take this forward, taking these issues forward? Because I believe, and what we have seen is that, wow, I've got 175 viewers on YouTube. Malik, I don't think, instead of the figures going down, it's growing. I think, I don't think we can leave these people hanging. You guys can stay for the next 2 hours, because I believe it's a very interesting conversation, which is that I believe the corruption is seeming to be a very toxic subject that I believe Jamaicans really want to deal with, and people are sort of coming to terms with it now. I was listening to someone earlier, and he said that Jamaicans are not intelligent. And every time I hear somebody saying that they're not uneducated, I say, you have to be careful how you say those things, you know. Jamaicans are wising up now. That is why someone said the other day, I think it was Oral Tracing said, PNP are winding up on GLP woman and GLP are winding up. And he's saying things have changed now where they realize that we can't keep fighting each other just because these guys are having toxic issues at the top. We have got to actually realize that we have got to work together no matter what. And I think this is something which I believe is the essence of going forward. So who is going to take Jamaican forward? And that is going to be a decision which is going to be made by the people of Jamaica. Mr. Danmar Clark, I hope you're going to go to the polls, Danmar. I don't know if I should ask you the question. Should I ask you the question if you're going to go to the polls?
Well, I told me, to be honest with you, it's a national duty to make it to the polls, man. It's a national duty to make it to the polls.
Yes. And I hope that the polls will go up to, I think it's 5 o'clock. They say it goes up to in Jamaica. I think it's 10 o'clock in the UK. Isn't it? Malik, in the UK, when the polls closes at 10 o'clock, don't we always get an exit poll, which is always correct?
Yes. Yes.
Right at 10 o'clock.
Yeah. More or less. And sometimes even before that.
Even before that.
Yes. Because depending on when the polling stations have started to do their counts, etc., and some may close a little bit earlier than others, especially in rural areas, they're able to then get a consensus as to how it's looking nationally. And some even make their calls earlier, which is how the political analysts like ourselves are able to make certain predictions.
Yes.
Well, for us in Jamaica, we have to close off a little bit early. I realize, primarily because our process are very manual. I heard that for this election they're going to give a little extension, but it's pretty manual in Jamaica.
You're talking regarding
is the whole issue of the closing off time for voting, right?
Yeah,
right?
so okay.
It's set for 5 p.m. But I heard that there might be an extension. Yeah, there might be an extension. So I'm saying there might be a little extension, even though the process in Jamaica is very manual. You understand me? So they do need some time between, say, the same 5 p.m. around that time. They usually use that time from 5 to around 8 or 9 o'clock to complete the tallies. And then different announcers now would get the call from the polling station as to what the final vote is, and then they announce it. So it's not as automated as in the UK. So that was the reason.
So Malik, what are we gonna go on live then and call the election before Cliff Hughes on next week the 4th, because it's gonna be the 4th for us. The 4th is the 3rd for the election, but for us it's gonna be the 4th where we're gonna know the results. Are we gonna go live, Malik?
Well,
gonna be tight,
to use military analogies here. I will die on this hill.
Yes.
PNP.
Yes.
PNP. I feel that at this stage in our national development, there is a need for change right now. And since we have just 2 parties, what history has shown us is that when one party stays in for too long, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so change is always necessary. And this has been the path that we have been on since our quote unquote independence. And so at this time now, yes, hashtag time come. It is in the best interest of our country to have an injection of fresh ideas. And looking again at the geopolitical space, it bodes us well to have this fresh injection of ideas, to shake things up a little bit and have a new way of presenting Jamaica to the world, but more importantly, at home. Listen, when your electricity bill is spiraling out of control, when you cannot send your children to school, when you have to be choosing 4 days, Monday through Thursday, and then Friday, you just start the weekend early. Why? Because of bus fare. Yes. When you're thinking about younger persons under 35 having to simply dream about owning a property, How does that bode well for Jamaica 10, 20, 30 years' time? And so, as one who has benefited from visionary thinking to be where I am now, I think it's incumbent upon us as a country and as Jamaicans, wherever we are domiciled, to think about the best interest of our land first and foremost. And in that regard is why I would say, yes, time come for change just now. But naturally, it's Jamaica first, party second. But since you asked me directly, I'll answer directly.
It's very interesting that the moderator this time, apparently someone may have heard my comment where I said each time they say time, the last moderator George Davis, time. I say keep like you want to say time come. This moderator didn't say it this time, say time, but that other moderator kept time. So somebody must have heard my comment and say, is he saying time come or something like that? Jamaica could never choose Mark as leader. I give up everything I have there. So it is very interesting, and this is so very good because persons will have their view, like early in the Enver Carty, Jamaica could never choose Mark, give up everything. Someone says what someone said on TikTok, the doubt as they have shown fruits of great progress, and PNP is still not convinced me enough. It is, world, there's some corruption, not that it's right, but I would give the government the benefit of it. So you see, what, as you said guys earlier, nothing has changed for the persons whose mind is already made up, right? And therefore, it is who can bring out their people to the polls. Because the diehard and not the diehard, the undecided, I believe, is in a position where they're going to fall them on and say, we're not going to win, man, not a backside. Or they may say, yes, I'm going to go out and go for who I perceive is to be the less corrupted, or who I perceive is better me stay with what me know than go with what me don't know. And this is going to be the mindset of persons as they decide. So as for this election, it's going to be a very interesting one. And then we're going to be coming back and we're going to be analyzing. And we're going to say, just like that professor in the UK, what is it that the people collectively said? You remember when we had the election in the UK where Nick Clegg came into play and he had the coalition? What did Professor Whitty, what that guy said? He came in, what that professor they always pull out all the while in the UK to say, what is his views? And he said what the views were of the British people was that they did not trust the Conservative only to run the country. They had to be a coalition. They did not trust Labour, the only party to run the country. So that is why they had a coalition. And that coalition was with Nick Clegg, that's of the Lib Dem, and also David Cameron of the Conservative Party. And that is why I'm a bit slightly annoyed that you never had the opportunity for people like the UIC or the other parties to have some sort of mini platform to hear what they have to say. You understand? Because guess what? They are democratically a part of the electoral process and they are parties in the system. They should have had a voice somehow. And they, not on the same stage, maybe, as the prime minister and the opposition leader. So people can have options, because you can never tell when you give voices to these smaller parties. Then one of these smaller parties may pick up 2 or 3 or 4 seats or 5 seats, and then they become the kingmaker. And some sort of changes in a way to shake up the democratic process. But anyway.
But still, but remember, we had tried the third party thing a few years ago, right? When Golding had left the Labour Party to set up this thing, and they realized it now work and run back in again. So it's just part of our cultural experience, whereby it's just a party system. And so you either vote one, the other, or you don't vote at all. And it is this level of apathy, ironically, that really impacts the election. Because remember, the last time around, it was around 38-39% of eligible voters who actually turned out to vote. And so Jamaica, then, the government has been decided on a minority, ironically, impacting the lives of the majority. So when people say, I can't bother vote, We may not be into politics, but politics is surely into us.
Yes.
So the least you can do is question and challenge and probe and vote, because the policies are going to affect us anyway. And even those of us residing outside of Jamaica. Now, this whole thing with remittances, making up just under 20% of our GDP.
Yes.
These things impact the lives of our families in a real way, So this is why, irrespective of where we're domiciled, we must be invested in, participatory, and concerned about our motherland. We must.
Yes.
That is a duty. And I guess if we had civics in high school now, it may have helped, because apathy is not the answer, It's not the answer.
Well, that is correct. And talk about civics. I mean, I will have to have you on to talk on civics at one point. Remember, we discussed that, because I've been doing those programs on civics. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining tonight for the final debate with the Prime Minister, Dr. Michael Andrew Holness, and the opposition leader, Mark Golding, favorite to call Marky G, as they debate running up to the election on September.
You hear him?
What's that?
No, I said, Danmar, you hear him? Scandalous. Scandalous.
I hear him, man.
Well, I could have said, and bro God, and stuff like that. I want to encourage fellow Jamaicans who are here, and for those overseas as well, if you can really give that call to your, because I was on TikTok earlier and I was getting the feedback from persons when I asked them where they were coming from, Florida, all over the states and different parts of the world, to encourage your family members to vote. And to even help them to make up their mind to exercise. I'd love to see a 60% turnout. Do you think that is that is presumptuous or like a pipe dream to say 60% turnout?
Pipe dream. What happened?
You think it's a pipe dream?
Yeah. There's too many people on the fences. Too many people on the fences right now. So
yeah. But let me smoke my pipe and let me smoke my pipe then. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining. Malik, thank you so much. And those on YouTube, thank you guys on YouTube. I've seen an increase on the YouTube. Remember to like and follow, where we're keeping this discussion going on, and follow my TikTok as well. We might give my review tomorrow as well. Malik, God bless you.
Likewise. Danmar,
respect.
Brothers, take care. Viewers, take care. Blessings.
Respect. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tonight, and for those who are, watching from wherever you are, those on TikTok, those on Facebook, those on YouTube as well. Let me see on Instagram as well. Thank you so much for joining, and I want to thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for being a part of this discussion, where we look at the last debate leading up to the election on September the 3rd. And if you're from Jamaica and you're watching, I encourage you to go to the polls and to vote. Irrespective, and whatever your choices are, I'll encourage you to actually also to look at the manifesto. Both the manifestos are on the internet. PNP, JLP, you can see. I was a bit disappointed, as I said earlier, that there wasn't a dissection of the manifestos, but nevertheless, that's where we are. Debates are sometimes who win, but who win sometimes doesn't mean to say that it's going to be the outcome of the government or the election. And they always say something. This is what they always say, and I leave you with this: you may vote out the government, or you get the government in. Yes, vote out the government, but you get the government in. I'll implore you to read the manifesto that is someone saying there on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube. With the manifesto, I see a plan. JLP are still making progress after 9 years. I'd like 80% turnout, like 1980. Okay, Elfrida Carter. So yeah, you are with me. I want to say 60%. You said 80%. Let's go for 80%. Why not? I'd encourage you to read the manifesto. Elfrida Carter. You mean a copy JLP1? Okay, I can see discussions going on. Well, I want to thank you so much for that, and have a good night, and God bless you, and peace out. Cheers. Okay? All right.